What's up, Luke? Hope your weekend's going well. Thanks for the message this morning. Off to a good start. It'd be sick for you to come to Portland. I also need to get down to Bend, so definitely on my list. Shane's gonna be popping on here. RDVO. Thanks for joining. This is gonna be just like a live Q&A, but I think in the meantime, just gonna be talking about some of the clients that I've had this week. Had a few new private lessons joining, and just the things that they're struggling with, and then the approach to solving or helping them get to a better place where they're at with their dogs. But before we get into any of that, I just want to answer any questions that you might have. See, it looks like you got maybe an English bulldog. Uh, okay. Or Pock, thanks for joining. This is like a Q&A. We're just going to start off with that. And if no one's asking questions, just going to talk about lessons that I've had this week. Shane, the other trainer, is joining us. My brother Shane also that. Uh, just add another perspective perhaps. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat there and we will answer them up. Probably do like a back and forth sort of thing.
So let's go ahead and just get started with your lessons, man. Like, what have you seen lately?
Yeah, so the first new lesson that I had this week was they brought a new puppy into the house. Dog's a little bit older. It's like 5 months old. But they have a second dog in the house. And there has been some conflict going on between them. And the puppy's just really rambunctious. And they also need to work on stuff with the other dog because she can't be trusted off the leash. And, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat when I went into their house was just the energy of the puppy. And so part of their prescription for settling down the dog is going to be, having it be on a leash because it doesn't know anything. So they need to be able to communicate with the dog, building communication with it, and we do that through the marker system. I had them first just doing good and yes and get it with the dog, and then playing with the dog more because it also wants to kind of chase the cats in the house. So going to be having them play with the dog more in that sort of prey drive based play, so he can get the chasing out. And the other part of it too was he's gonna have to be in his crate a little bit more right now, just so then they can compartmentalize their training. um, he needs to learn more skills in order to be included more often because he's kind of pissing the other dog off.
So
And
can I interrupt your class? So they have a puppy who's 4 or 5 months old,
yeah,
an older dog. How old's the older dog?
like 8.
8. And how long have they had that dog? Like all its life?
Yeah,
Okay, and then there's a cat that goes into the mix.
2 cats.
Two cats. So we got 2 dogs and 2 cats. Did they talk about what the other dog is like with the 2 cats?
I'm assuming fine. Yeah, they didn't mention that. So
Gotcha. Okay. And then they just got the puppy. How long have they had the puppy?
like 3-4 weeks.
Okay, so about a month. And so so they have a dog, and then the other dog doesn't have. So I guess what was the other dog like when you came in?
I mean, the other dog is like good, right? Good dog. Um, but in the past, she has like gotten loose and chased a herd of elk, maybe chased a black bear, gone for like 45 minutes. So now she's not allowed to be off the
Off the
leash.
leash. Okay. So okay. I mean, all right. And so now they got this puppy here, and so they have to rethink exactly what they're doing with their other dog, how to do things differently with the puppy.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
like
they'll be going down the
definitely,
exact same road.
it's definitely going, counter to what they've done before.
Yeah.
But they've got like, baby gate situation going on where they've cordoned off, you know, like the kitchen area. And that's where the little puppy's crate is. And I've just also told them like, your other dog was here first. And, you know, you don't have the same sort of problems with this dog like you do the puppy. And the puppy doesn't know anything right now. So you have to just manage the puppy a little bit more, work on building his skills, and then you can go between like the crate and place work, mentioning back ties so the dog is tethered, so they're not reacting to things.
Yeah. Be
It's
more
like they're just in a
proactive.
better position to be more relaxed, um, more in control of what's going on. When I first showed up, they had the dogs on the leashes, and I just had them walk the dogs around the living room, and it was like 5 minutes, and the dogs were already tired, um, and that was something that they'd never done before, you
Yeah.
know.
Focus
So,
work right there.
yeah. So I just had them walking the dogs around. They got pretty zonked out after just a few minutes. They put the puppy in the crate. He almost instantly laid down. Older dog, same thing. She was pretty tired from just walking around because it was just going opposite of what their natural, just
Yeah.
excitement. They were pretty excited first coming in, but they definitely settled down really nicely. And then I was able to demonstrate the marker system, how that goes, how I'd want to play with the dogs.
Did they talk about like what their goals are with the puppy?
Hey, Brittany, thanks for joining. We got this is just a little Q&A session going on. So if you got questions, just throw them in and we'll answer them. Basically, goals is like they want better control over the puppy. They want some basic obedience, um, maybe off leash stuff. If we can get there.
Gotcha. Okay. And so does the current dog have any obedience, or is it just like kind of like a like for the most part naturally fairly decent dog?
Naturally, fairly decent.
Gotcha.
If you go ask her to lay down on the bed, she won't like stay
Okay.
there for a long period of time. She won't wait to be released. She'd probably just, she just goes and lays down when she's tired, or
Yeah.
whatever, and then, gets up and walks around and whatnot,
Yeah.
which is fine when it's, I think, a single dog household, and I think that can be fine too when both dogs in the house are at like a good level with each other. But with a puppy who doesn't know anything and then a dog who's just sort of moving around and doing stuff, I think it opens up the opportunity for that puppy to be like, oh, is it playtime? And then constantly like pester and jump on that dog
Yep.
just because of where the puppy is at mentally. And
Yes.
so I think it's going to be beneficial for them to be like, okay, yes, my other dog did have a lot more freedom, but you know, I need to create an environment that's going to help the puppy succeed. So that means I need to like tell my other dog like, hey, instead of moving around a whole bunch, I need to I need to keep you contained, because that influences that dog. Like right now I have Lucy here. You can like she's chilling, right? And then the board and train dog is chilling. And I think that really speaks to the dogs um matching the vibe, it's like, oh, she's chilling, so like I can chill. If Lucy was moving around a whole bunch, I think this dog would be a little too concerned about what's going on,
Yep. Yep. Most definitely.
and then it would just stay like locked in or keyed up and uh would not settle. And but I think this really helps that the dog over here, Brandy, to settle
Yeah.
and just
I would
get used
agree.
to her presence.
It takes a practice to be able to settle when things are to be chill when things are going on,
Yes.
right?
Hey,
So
Effie.
yeah.
Good morning. Happy Saturday. Yes, happy Saturday, everyone. If you have training questions, I'm just going to interject here periodically. If you got questions, throw them in the chat here. Um, we're here to answer them up for you. And I might even ask you some questions. It's Saturday morning. How's everyone's day been so far? We're getting started. And then actually, I don't know if maybe some people know Shane here, but I'm going to have Shane introduce himself a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So, Shane, yeah, why don't you just
Um,
tell everybody who you are?
my name's Shane. Obviously, you can see by the little Instagram handle there. It's dog trainer Shane. Um, Ruben and I are brothers. We had the shop. I focused on a lot of the board and trains, um, and still training dogs. And so we're here just to chat and see what's going on. Ruben had some lessons lately, some new lessons pop in, and so we're just kind of diving into those, and then some questions that you all have. Just some things about me. So it's like I have a dog. She used to be a street dog. She's been probably one of the best dogs I could have ever asked for. But I also got a 2-year-old son, so navigating toddler life with a dog, it brings its own challenges and stuff, and it's new, especially when my dog had never seen kids before. And so, um, yeah, just going through life with this kind of stuff, where a lot of people kind of have the same situation going on. Just sometimes their dog isn't so trained up, which makes it a little bit more difficult. And definitely having a trained dog makes those kind of things that much easier.
Yeah, can you show us Polga?
Yeah, so we got Poggy over here. She's just laying down. You can see over there.
Yep.
She's just snoozing. Well, now she's up. She's like, "What's up? What's going on?" So yeah, if there are no questions, I have a couple more questions about like the puppy thing. All right. So what? All right. You got the dogs, moving the dogs around, and you started talking about the marker system, right? So I don't know if these folks know what the marker system is. Like, um, how did you explain that to these owners who probably never heard of that before?
Yeah, so the marker system is the thing that we use to tell the dog when they're on the right path. And it it gives the dog very clear direction on what I want them to be doing. to, say, hey, you've done the right thing, or say, hey, you're keep doing that thing. And it's just what tells the dog that this is the right path. It takes a picture of what they are doing. And so you need to create value in that. And so we just had them, basically saying, good, give the dog some food. Say yes, have the dog chase some food. Okay. Um, and also this get it thing, get it game, go away from me to get some food, come back to me to get some food. These things they create clear communication for our dogs, but they also give the dogs the things that they inherently need as dogs. It gives them the opportunity to work for something. Like, everybody knows dogs need a job. Everybody knows dogs love to work. Like, I think that is something that everybody knows. And I think we think that the walk is the work, or the walk is the job. And by doing food work, your dog is problem solving, but they are also satiating this inherent desire to like work for food. If your dog was in the woods, it has to work for its meals. It has to go and hunt, chase something, it has to do those things. So that's inherently in the nature of the dog. But when we just put it in their food bowl, we remove that from them. And so just by hand feeding your dog, you are giving them that, I think, biological enrichment, biological fulfillment of working for something. And,
I agree.
that the get it game as well, it causes them to use their nose. So they have to sniff stuff out. And there's a really good podcast out there for everyone watching. It's called The Canine Paradigm. And they were talking about the nose. And, they were just mentioning like so many dogs don't know how to use their nose because of how we go about interacting with them. It's like their nose is the thing that tells them like how to navigate this world. They aren't sight oriented creatures. They're nose oriented creatures. It's like they mentioned in that podcast that, your dog is living with you and all that stuff, but after 2 weeks, they like forget who you are, but they know who you are through their nose. That's why it's like when you see in videos, when the soldier comes home or something like that, the dog doesn't really recognize them from the beginning, but then they smell them and then they're like, oh shit, I know who you are, you know? And so the dog's sense of memory is in their nose. And what they were mentioning is oftentimes people punish the dogs for using their nose. The dog's getting into the trash can or, something. And so the dog ends up learning like the nose is not good for me. I'm not going to follow this. And so by doing things like the get it game and, the dog has to hunt for that treat that fell on the ground, it's like you're telling them like this is a good thing to follow, and I think it helps with overall confidence, building curiosity, right? Because if your dog is so used to using their nose, their first inclination is to like be, do some scenting, rather than just being solely eye focused, right? It's like when dogs are getting reactive on us, they're not using their nose. They're
Yeah.
just using their eyes.
Eyes. You always
But
watch
when they
me
start,
see that.
but when they start sniffing, it's like the whole thing changes.
Yeah. It's funny, when you mention like the get it game and like the dog using the nose, because it's like many dogs come in through the boarding train stuff, and you go get it, and you toss the food down, and it goes out of their eyesight, and they don't know what to do with that. They're like, it disappeared from view. What do I do?
Yeah,
And so you
yeah,
gotta like you gotta kind of coach them through into like using their nose. And then as they also start to understand the markers, like the yes marker, and so then they find that little piece of food, and you're like yes, and then they come running back to you. They're like, oh, I see. They can start building up some like resiliency to
Uh-huh.
actually using their nose to find the little piece of food. They're not having to be coached so much. Especially if it goes a little bit farther away, might go under something, and they're just like they've had the multiple practice sessions of like using their nose to find the food, using the nose, and then when they find it, there's that reward. So again, it kind of builds up the desire because oh hey, it's kind of like a double payday here. I'm going to find the piece of food, but then they're going to give me that word, which means I'm going to get more reward, more
Uh-huh.
food. And
Yeah.
so like just again, like I mean, I can't tell how many dogs have like using that particular game just to help build up some confidence in the dog, especially with things that are like adversive to them, like that one dog that was like biting people on the couch. The owners, they were having the baby come in. They were having a baby soon, and he couldn't put a collar on the dog. Couldn't get the dog off the couch. And it was like conditioning that dog with like, hey, collar comes on, get it, yes, 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 yes. You know what I mean? And just using those kind of things to build up confidence in dogs uh,
Mm-hmm.
by just again getting them to use natural skills of like their nose.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So got him using the markers, right? Start working some basic stuff with that and obviously it drains energy, 5, 10 minutes of that, the dog is cooked, you know. Um, Management strategies, number two, it's a young dog. It doesn't know anything. So having free reign of the house is way too much responsibility, and it just presents too much opportunity for doing the things that they don't want the dog to be doing. And the more he practices that stuff, the more it's just the more he's just going to do it because it's rewarding for him. And then that's the other thing is like I was telling you, because like dogs don't do anything that's not rewarding for them. Everything that they do is rewarding for them. Hey, Kara, thanks for joining. This is a little Q&A. Right now, we're just talking about a marker system, what we're doing with this new puppy client that I have. But yeah, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I hope your Saturday's going well so far. Um, but yeah, let us know if you have questions. Um, what was I saying? Like everything that the dog does is rewarding. Okay. Dogs don't do things that don't feel good to them. So like think about that. Everything your dog does is in the best interest of them, and like you don't like your dog chewing on shoes, that's that's a you problem. You don't like your dog barking out the window, that's a you problem. So you've got to do things that block those behaviors from happening because if they're not allowed to practice them, they don't become a behavior.
Yeah, I
So
always tell
management was
folks.
big. And then playing with the dog. I was like, you got to play with this dog often. It's young, it's got a lot of energy, it needs outlets for that stuff. Um, and very particular type of playing, not just fetch and stuff like that. Like I specifically was like tug, and you got to get this dog to chase it, and showing him how to chase it, how to get him to chase it. He didn't really know how to hold on to the toy, so I had to like, sort of explain how we can build that up. Um, but I'm like, this is like him learning how to hunt, and he doesn't know how to hunt right now, and so we got to
Yeah,
teach him how to hunt essentially. Um,
I had
and
a
like those three
conversation.
things right there are like the baseline stuff, and that's what usually I have people work on for like the first 2 weeks, is just building those things up in the dog. Hey, a brick name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Maybe you can help me out. Sitsiki. But thanks for joining. Happy Saturday. Hope your day's going well. Yeah. So if you're just joining, we were just talking about some puppy stuff. Um, what I've been doing with some clients. You know, this is going to be replayed. I'm going to put it on the page so you can watch it. Um, but yeah, if anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat here. We want to answer those up for you, so that way, like, I don't know, if it's helpful. Um, we've been doing this a long time. Kindred Dog PDX has been in operation for over 11 years, almost 12 years this summer. We've seen a lot of behaviors, a lot of dogs coming through. Pretty much every single dog does the same exact thing, just a different flavor. And likewise, every human pretty much does the exact same thing, just a different flavor. So nothing's really that unique.
Yeah, definitely.
The dogs are pretty much the same. You know, they all do the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like we've seen it. We've probably seen it all, really. I don't know if there is something that I haven't seen yet. I have not really been surprised.
Yeah, I agree. You know, so one of the things, you know, as you kind of mentioned, you know, like I had a consultation the other day with folks that were getting a puppy. And then, you know, so we talked about like crate training, management, you know, and then the activities that the puppies is doing, right? And so I was like, you need to focus its brain,
Here,
right?
Shane, hold on a sec. We got a
Yeah.
question here.
Yeah, shoot.
So we got, could humans unintentionally emotionally color onto dogs, like project our emotions to them? Yes, I definitely think so. Our dogs don't, I think our dogs like, um, obviously our dogs are emotional creatures. You know what I mean? But like, I think, I think people might misread dogs' behavior. So, like, for example, right? I have my dog on her bed. She's literally sleeping. Okay, but some people might be like, that dog looks depressed because she's calm. Okay, I don't think we have a good understanding on, like, I think in general sense, we don't really understand what our dogs are doing, or like perceived, right? Because I think I think we can be so used to seeing active dogs, like they're just moving around all the time, that when we see a dog laying down, it like reads as calm, as like depressed or something like that. But I'm like, how is that any different than if I was like coming in from a walk and she went and laid down on her own? So it's like I asked her to go to place and she's laying down and she chooses and she falls asleep, because I've trained that in her through like activity first, calm second. And so just by that nature of that pattern, she's going to just like lay down like that. Um and I
And then
think like go ahead,
like
Shane.
I think also like so with that, right? So it's like, can we like, you know, project our emotions onto the dog? And I think unintentionally, yes, we can, right? So if let's say someone, they are, you know, they don't have control of their temper, right? So they're constantly just like angry, yelling, doing stuff like these things, and like that dog that hears that shit all the time, it's probably going to be somewhat kind of skittish. That's constantly getting yelled at.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? An unintentional byproduct just be how the behavior of the person is. Another thing would be like if a person can't settle on their own, right? So it's more than likely like when you're not doing anything, your dog is going to just like chill out. Oh, hey, you know, if that dog can read the room, like, yeah, I'm going to relax. But if you are constantly pacing around, constantly moving, constantly not just you're not able to chill, that dog is probably not going to be able to chill. It's probably going to be pacing around with you, looking for things to do, constantly doing stuff. And then it's going to develop the same kind of anxious behavior that the person has, right? Because then mixing in with these kind of things as you're moving around, it's like, what type of interactions does the person have with the dog? Oh, hey, you're following me around. Let me give you your pet. You go, oh, hi. Da, 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 da. riling that up even more. Then you go back to doing your whole little thing all over again, and it's just the dog falls into the exact same cycle as the human. And again, those are just like unintentional byproducts just by just the dog and the human living in the exact same kind of space, right?
Yeah.
You know, I see it with people that have dogs and kids, right? The dog is fucking jacked up. Why? Because the kids are always jacked up, freaking running around, and it's just like the dog doesn't know how to relax and settle, or having just like how to ignore the stimuli that happens in there, and so the dog just feeds into it. You know, and
Yeah.
so I think these are like some of these like kind of human emotions that unintentionally get pushed on to the dog.
Yeah. I think like a long time ago, I learned like, you know, I've got to be my dog's guide, like even if I internally feel like shit, I've gone through really hard things. I went through a divorce, going through breakups and stuff like that, but I still got to show up for my dog. I still got to present myself to them, right? I got to be for them. I have to be like that calm presence, that leader, that like, hey, I got it, I got you sort of thing, because if like if I'm buckling, they're buckling, and if I'm trying to influence my dog, oh, be right back. Nope. Yeah. Should have changed the camera on that so you could see what I just did there. Brandy, the boarding trainer, was getting off of her place, and I said, NOPE. I stepped towards her. She went back onto her bed. I said down. She went and laid back down. Um, but a long time ago, I learned like I have to be able to influence my dog, and I did this like with my dog Oso. He was hella reactive, like so freaking reactive, and early on, we were like chasing each other emotionally. He's getting worked up, I'm getting worked up, and then we're both just like freaking out. And I learned that like when he's going to 10, I have to go to 0 because I can't help him out if I'm also up here with him. I'm freaking out. I'm not breathing. My palms are getting sweaty. I'm panicking and he's panicking. And so like through a lot of time, you know, through a lot of like trial, not even, I don't know if it's like trial and error, it's just like getting out there and just being like in the shit for so long that I did eventually learn like, okay, when he goes up here, I have to come down here. And that definitely helped us a lot. Yes, that dog needed a lot of training, but um I I did. I have to go to 0. That's the only way I can influence him. Doctor patient sort of thing. If someone's coming into the hospital room and there is an emergency situation and the doctor who's supposed to be doing the surgery is freaking out, like they're not going to be very helpful. You know, they're going to be like, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Like they've got it, even though they probably are like, oh fuck, like, but they're in a position that says, hey, in order for us to help this person, we have to be cool, calm, and collected. And I think the other part of that, you get better at being cool, calm, and collected when you have skills on board, when you have training on board, because you know what to do. You just need to access it. And at first it's going to be, oh crap, I'm in the heat of the moment. But like the more you practice that, the more you become more assured in your capabilities. And you can navigate that thing a lot more calmly. Me and Shane, we train jujitsu, and I think that is a perfect thing. Like when we were first white belts, it was a lot of panic. Even though it's a controlled situation, you got this person on your back trying to choke you, and you're like, you're just like struggling to survive, not really getting killed, but it's like you don't want to get
You
choked
feel
out
it
or
though.
whatever.
The thing,
And
the fight or flight thing activates.
yeah, and so
You
you're like,
can't
but
choose.
now after 10 years of training, it's like I can be on underneath someone who's 200 pounds and got me in a really bad position. And I'm like, okay, how can I move my body this way? You know, like I'm able to like actively test my brain and problem solve. Okay, what do I need to do to get out of this? Can I move my body to create a little bit of space? You know, can I just get onto my hip a little bit so they're not on my chest? Right. And now I can breathe. And now I can actually like maybe I can bring my leg around. You know, it's just when you have a baseline knowledge or you have some knowledge, you're just able to think so much more clearly.
Especially under pressure. That's
Especially under pressure. And that's what our dogs do. Our dogs are constantly, especially if you have a reactive dog, your dog is applying pressure to you, you know, and like how, yeah, and you just how do I get better at handling pressure through practice, you know, and I think we've developed our training technique to be like a slow, controlled pathway to gaining that confidence, you know, because like yes, you could gain confidence just by going out and just like throwing yourself in the deep end. Like eventually you're going to learn how to swim. You know what I mean? But I think that can be,
it
I
might be
think
a
that
longer
can,
process.
I think that can just be a lot, you
Yeah.
know? But if you like, hey, we're going to take this slow, controlled pathway, you know, it's like, I think just the process just feels better.
Yeah. Slowly, gradually put in more stress, so to speak.
Yeah. Just looking at some, yeah, working with reactive dogs is hard. You know, it really is. Um, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, you know, because reactivity is on a spectrum, I think, too. You know, some dogs, like, they're reactive, but it could just be like, you know, oh, maybe they don't have enough information and it can be like solved like that. And then there's some where it's like they can have a lot of fucking information and still be tough dogs. Bevy Hills, working on keeping my dog's world small to make success easy. Yeah, I mean, that is a part of it. You know, I don't know if I would say like you don't know I don't know if I want to say like keep their world small. Um but like cuz you can still take your dog to the park. You know, like yeah, you might have a reactive dog, still take him to the park, but like be in a section of the park. You know, like instead of utilizing the whole park, maybe you're like, hey, we're going to be here for now. And then like maybe based on what you show me, we can expand into that. Like I always encourage clients to like do the stuff you want to do with your dog, but just recognize how you might go about doing that. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, take them to the hiking pathway, but instead of going on the trail, you're maybe in the parking lot. You know, like go to the new park. But instead of like walking through the whole park, you're just in this little area. You know, so um, yeah, I mean, there is that element of like it's small in the sense of
Maybe small in the sense of what you're actually going to be doing, like in the grand scheme of things, right? And so let's do it this way. So um, if you're keeping your dog's world small, so you can kind of keep them like under a threshold, right? So it's like at a certain point you need to push the boundaries. So it's like one, you need to build up certain skills, right? So it's okay. I'm gonna work on saying this, building up this yes marker, right? Then you might gonna like go up to your front door, open the front door up, so the dog looks out the front door, looks at you, and then you're like yes, you know, start building up this idea of hey, looking to me is great. So then you go out to the front of your house, and you do this exact same thing, right? Maybe depending on where you live, this might be different, right? You live in an apartment with a bunch of dogs, your dog really struggles. Okay, maybe you're gonna need to get in the car and drive somewhere so you can be far away from stuff. But you work on the exact same concept of these skills, but you have to keep pushing your dog to out there in order to get better, to get over the hump.
yeah,
Right? And so it's like what you do might be small in the sense it's not going to be these big extravagant things, you know, but you can build up your skill set. So as you do that, your dog is also going to gain more ability to move, right? So it's like you might do this on like I don't know, a 6 foot leash. You might use a retractable leash that's 15 feet later on. You might use a long line that's 30 feet, but you're building up the skill set to expand everything that you're doing. And then as you expand that, what you do with your dog is also going to expand. You know, how good is your dog about, can you call your dog's attention? Fido, yeah, yes. It sees something, Fido, yes. You know what I mean? But you have to get out there to push it.
Yeah.
But they got to have the skill set, right? So if they don't have the skill set, it's gonna be tough. You know,
Yeah.
I go, I take my dog out and I see this guy out there with his dog. Goes out there all the time, like awesome, like very dedicated. But the dog doesn't understand what he's asking. I can see it. The dog sees the dog. It's about to blow up. There's the food, comes out, tries to distract with the food. And they're like, I don't want it. And so it's like already right there. It's like the skill needs to be built up before even going out there to ask for this. Right? How much that dog value the food in the first place. And so like building up these layers of skills and are what's going to help build up leverage for taking the dog out to this park and putting him on the long line.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Yeah, starting inside before you go outside is perfect. We always say like your home is your gym. Like this is where you can build so many skills in just inside your house, in your backyard. It's a very underutilized resource, and it's something that just not a lot of people think of because it's like, it's just in our brains. We're like, we go outside with the dog. We put a leash on and we go outside. And when we have people like, oh, your dog needs to be on a leash inside, it's like, what? I got to put a leash on my dog inside? The leash is only for outside. That's how I have control over them. What do I need to have them on a leash in here? They're inside. There's walls up. They can't do anything. And it's like, well, they can do a lot, actually. So just real quick, again, want to interject. If anybody has any particular questions, if you've been listening for a while, maybe if you have questions on anything that we have talked about here, depending on how this is going to go, we might be on here for another 20 minutes. We're going to cut it off at noon. I think an hour-long live is a good amount of time. We'll post this to YouTube. I think I can post it to YouTube. It'll be on my Instagram page. I think we can put it on Shane's page, but he joined me, so I'm not too sure about that. But it'll be available for replay. And basically all we've been talking about, like markers, some work I did with a puppy and, what the game plan is, at least for them starting out. I just had a first lesson with them. And now we've also just been chatting about, emotions with the humans and the dogs and skill sets and, how to build things up. So, I'm going to, maybe if anyone has any questions, maybe we'll just give it a minute here. For that.
I can't see anything on like a chat box. So if there are questions comes up, can you read it out?
Yeah, I'll do that.
It's funny though. I'm just going to talk while we're kind of waiting here. When talking about the stress of things and like how you react, you got to go back down to zero. It's funny because it's like with a toddler, like especially when they're starting to develop into this thing, and it's like you see these tantrums or something. How you respond to that very much matters because they get a reaction out of you, and so then they start to look for that kind of reaction, right? So like my son will climb up on like his little like lunch table and he'll stand up there against the wall, and it's like when he first did that, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? You could fall and get hurt there. And so I got to be calm. Hey, can you sit down on that, please? Can you get off? Thank you. Because if I go out, he thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
So he does it again, and he does it again, and he does it again. So I had to I realized that, and it's like, okay, I gotta. That's not impressive, buddy.
Yeah.
Down. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it just when you were talking about that with the dog, it's just like, oh yeah, it is with the kids too. You know, the dogs are like toddlers, and they never leave that toddler stage.
Yeah. So we got a question here. So this person writes, Bevy Hills writes, I have a 7-month-old puppy. Trade training, while has gone successful, but trying to leave briefly with him in his pen, he freaks out. Should I stick to the crate or work on this with him?
So you're using a crate and also using a pen.
Should they stick with the crate or try to implement a puppy pen as well?
I mean, I would just stick with the crate. You know, I guess like what's your goal? Are you trying to just like be able to leave the dog out? Um, you know, like a, how I see like a pen could be used is like just like the puppy can still move, but they're still contained, right? Um, I think the crate is great because it's like you're going to go to sleep, right? Most likely they're going to go to sleep in the crate. In the pens, they got a lot of space to move. So depending on when you're using the pen, when you know, it's like how would you use that? Um, but again, it's like they can move. There can be accidents. I don't know if you're experiencing accidents in it, but I've always just used a crate. You know, the puppy comes out, and then it's like, you know, this is something we are kind of talking about the other puppy. It's like controlled what their brain is doing. You know, hey, I might sit with you. I'm gonna have like your leash on you, and I might give you a chew toy here, a little pacifier. Take you outside to go potty. We come back. I might just have you sit here again, or maybe I do a little bit of food games with you, a little bit of chase a little toy. It doesn't take much to tire a puppy out, where you can put them back in the crate and they go back to sleep. Um, did you say your dog was 7 months old?
Yeah.
You know, so like a 7 month old dog, it's like you can ask a lot more of a 7 month old dog than like a 4 month old dog, a 5 month old dog, just how quickly their brain starts to evolve. And so it's like, you know, a dog like that is, you can actually start to ask them to go lay on their bed. You could have a leash on your foot and just like, hey, we're not doing anything right now. And I need you just to like chill out or develop a place command. Um, you know, so it's like, I don't think with that dog of that kind of age, I probably wouldn't use a pen at all. Like I would just go with the crate. Hey, it's crate time. Chill out. You know, and if like
Yeah.
you have a hard time with closing the door and getting away, those are going to be some things that you need to kind of work on with putting them in and being able to like move away. I don't know if that's what the question kind of said, was like it was the crate that's the issue when they go out of the room, or was it the pen?
No, the pen.
It's the pen. I would just stick with the crate.
Yeah. I just stick with the crate. Nope. Yeah. Crate. I think the crate is the way to go. Um, because yeah, I think like, what are your goals? Are you like maybe trying to transition away from the crate? Because I wouldn't recommend that. Along a few years ago, I was talking to a colleague, and I'd like to eventually leave without having a crate. So, um, so this is why I would always recommend a crate, and this is for safety. And it doesn't matter if your dog doesn't destroy anything or anything like that. It is, if God forbid there was a fire in your house, first responders are not going to find a leash and leash your dog up. They're just going to break that freaking door down, and your dog freaking out is probably just going to run out the door. And what's going to
Or
happen? It's going
stay
to
in
get
the house.
loose or stay in the house. If they're in a crate, they will be able to pick that crate up and bring the dog outside. Um, there was another video that was shared that it was caught on the owner's, ring cam or whatever inside their home. Their dogs were all out, like they had four of them, and just by the nature of this video, you could tell like this is something that the owners did with their dogs. They let them be free inside the home, and one of their dogs grabbed a remote control of some kind that had a particular kind of battery in it, started chewing on it, and caused a house fire. And the only reason why nothing was damaged, or like no one was hurt, was because that ring cam alerted the fire department, and the fire department actually shared that video. So dogs do dumb things because they're animals. Okay. And your crate is your number one way to prevent anything like that from happening. My dog Lucy is 12 years old, and she goes into a crate every single time I leave because, you know, that's also for me. What if I do something dumb and I leave something out? You know what I mean? Like, what if I didn't close my cupboard to my trash can well enough? It's like she could get in there. She could, she could be like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, and no one's here to be like, don't do that, you know? So,
I was just gonna say that, like behaviors that can develop outside, right? It's like, oh hey, you don't bark at the door right now, but then you leave, and then it's like, here comes someone knocking on the door, and then the dog starts barking, and you don't even know that that's happening, right? So now
yeah.
your dog is practicing barking at the door when someone shows up, and then it's like, how long does it take for that to dissipate, right? And again, it's just like the crate can help block behaviors from happening so they don't become a habit, because what your dog does is what they're going to do.
Yeah, and it's a mindset thing too, by having your dog go lay down in their crate, you're saying to your dog, you don't have to worry about anything, and this is gonna be another little tangent here, okay? But your dog is both a predator animal and a prey animal, okay? And so what that means is they kill things and they can also be killed. And because they can also be killed, they have a natural hypervigilance for survival. Your dog doesn't understand that in this space, right? We're in my apartment right now, that there's walls and nothing can hurt them. They don't understand that concept. All they know is like, I heard a noise. Is that something I need to worry about? Okay, because that noise could potentially be a threat. Okay, and so like, if your dog is just out wandering around and they're like, oh, what's that? I gotta go see what it is. It keeps them on hypervigilance. And I think that can add to, just thinking about it, like perceived anxiety, because the dog is just like keyed up all the time. They're just like constantly walking around. They follow you from room to room. Like, I don't know if that's anxious behavior as much as that's like survival instincts.
But
Because it's
also,
like,
but also that could also be anxious behavior built up by always being alert for the need of survival, right? What is that?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It's just like hypervigilance. Like, oh, fuck, I
exactly.
don't know what's going on. Like, I
Always
got to
on
pay
edge.
attention, and it's like Lucy can be on her bed here and she goes into REM sleep. She dreams all the time because she knows that like I don't have to worry about shit when I'm on this bed. Dad's got it under control, you know. And so by creating our dogs up, by giving them these things, we are able to shut their brains off because they are not designed for this world. They are not designed for the cars that are outside, the cooking that we do, the working from home, like they don't understand any of this stuff. They can get used to seeing it and it becomes, they become inoculated to it through just the daily repetition of it. But inherently, they are not built for this world. They're built for the woods. And what's going on in the woods? Nothing, not shit. It's quiet. Like there's nothing going on. Maybe the wind
The
blows and
noise
it.
does actually probably mean something. you know,
Exactly. In the woods, a noise is like, oh shit, what is that? Like it's either food or it's
I
uh
gotta get out of here.
I gotta get out of here, you know? But here it's just like, oh my God, there's so many noises. There's so much stimuli going on that I gotta pay attention to everything. And that's not good, right? It's just that's why humans meditate. So we can bring our brains to focus on one thing because our brains aren't even developed for this world. And that's why we get anxious because it's just like, oh my God, there's so many things I have to think about. I got to think about my bills. I got to think about my health. I got to think about getting a job. I got to think about my family. I got to think about my friends. I got to, like, there's just so much stuff. And so we meditate to calm our brains down. So we're hopefully maybe a little bit less anxious. I don't know if anyone isn't anxious. I think everyone is anxious, but we do things to help us be less anxious. And it's kind of like with our dogs too, I think it's just like, I think they're all just anxious, but these skills like this help us to like, okay, can focus on one thing right now. I can calm my brain down. So I'm hopefully a little bit less anxious. There's
Focus.
always problems. There's always shit going on. Yeah, crates definitely safe place for the dog. Absolutely. You're a dog sitter and I need to get a crate. Yes, absolutely. If you're housing dogs, 100% get crates. And this just makes it easy on you too. It's like if they're always out, like you're constantly on, like you're just, oh shit, what are the dogs doing? Um, but you can also have breaks, right? Like just because you're housing a dog doesn't mean they have to be out all the time. Um, and again, I think that just goes into their mental health capacity as well. Dogs shouldn't be moving around all the time. And I think the only reason why they're moving around all the time is because there's constant stimulation that says, I got to be moving around all the time. If
Yep.
they're in the woods not doing shit, they're probably laying down.
Well, it's kind of like when you look at like you see street dogs. They're very particular, right? Food's not always around, so it's like they go look for food, but then they lay down, they chill out, they wait. All right, I'm hungry again. I gotta go. I gotta go venture. They save the resources,
Yeah.
right? The energy that they have, and it's like they put it towards things that are more meaningful, right? And so if they're just not going to be out pacing around all the time. Yeah, there are dogs that live outside, and so everything that drives by, I used to live in Mexico, and like I would see a lot of street dogs. I'd ride my bike and go to like little towns, and it's like, yeah, you would see these dogs that lived outside, but they were constantly fed, and so it's just like, but they would always be on alert. Oh, there's a bicycle, there's a truck coming by, and they would chase these things. But you actually see the dogs that are just kind of like no one's there to feed them. When they do, and they come very infrequently, those dogs chill out a lot, and they just use their energy wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Their life is definitely probably challenging, but they're also just like, oh yeah, you know what? What is that? Is that worth my time?
Yeah.
You know, but like, focus. What's important?
Yeah. All right, we're looking at got 5 minutes left, and then we're gonna call it. So any other questions, um, comments, observations? That whole thing, the dog's predator and prey animals. I saw that on a documentary. I think it was Inside the Mind of Dogs, and I thought it was like super interesting. But it totally changed. Um, I think some of my perception on dogs and like why they do some of the things they do in our homes. How do you deal with barking? So
Kind of barking.
exactly, what kind of barking? But the very least, um, um, barking is a symptom of something else. Maybe too much energy. Okay, so it's like one of the things I'm always telling people is like play with your dogs more, right? Like your dog can't bark if they're tired, and they're satiated. Okay, so making sure that they have some level of fulfillment in that regard. Okay, so let's make sure we are playing with that dog and they are,
But this so why I asked why it could be what kind of barking, right? Because
well, it
you
could be
could go play
demand
with the dog.
barking.
It could be demand barking to go play, and then you go play with them and reinforce the demand barking, right? And that could appear in many different contexts and so
Visitors
on.
barking.
With visitors, so someone knocks on the door.
So that could be a couple of things like, you know, so this goes back to crating, stuff like that. So let's say your dog is loose in the house. You're in training, okay? Because this is something we got to work on. So like they're barking at the door. This is where that good and the yes marker come in. Can I go like, you know, Fido, come? They turn, or if I even just say their name, Fido, they look at me, yes, boom. Or Fido, they look at me, get it, and I can throw that piece of food and they go and chase it. Okay, I'm gonna do that a bunch of times. Okay, because like the visitor's barking is a natural tendency for the dog. Dogs are naturally territorial. So can I call him off of that? Can I re-engage his brain somewhere else? Okay. Like
You have to
that's
think
going to be
about
big one
something different.
because that's just going to like drain a bunch of energy too. Yes, I have to make my guest wait as well. And that's going to be another part of this is patience. Not only for patience on the dog, but like, hey, yeah, my friend's got to stand outside for 5 minutes. You know, I tell some clients like, yeah, put a little mini fridge out there and put some beers out there and be like, hey, grab a drink because I'm training my dog and it's going to take a little bit. You know, like, so you need to relax, okay? But like, refocus their energy so you could like maybe put them on plays or get them into the kennel or something like that. And then another thing that actually works really well too is like have your dog in the crate, people come over, dogs are barking, start dumping food into their kennel. Sniffing is naturally a calming behavior for dogs. When you dump food in their kennel when they're barking, they're going to start hunting for that food, and dogs can only do one thing at a time. He's either going to be hunting for that food or they're barking. You can't do both. So those have been two things that have been really helpful for a lot of my clients, especially clients who live in apartments and they have to have their kennel like in the main living room, which is pretty challenging. But the the throwing the food in there, um, it helps a lot. But then also, yes, making sure that you have played with your dog. If you know, most of the time we know when people are coming over, I want to go and drain that energy because it can still bark and stuff like that. But just how much gas is in the tank, you know? Yeah, I'm going to hopefully get a session and get a one-on-one soon. That's great. Uh, there's a lot of dogs that need to be trained. So, um, Katie, thanks for joining. We are actually just ending this, but we are replaying this, or it's going to be available on the page, so you can watch it. We covered a lot here: puppy stuff, lifestyle aspects, crate training concepts, things to think about, um, how our dogs' brains work. Uh, yeah, we
Quite a bit.
covered quite a bit. So thank you all for joining. This is going to become a regular series. So every Saturday at 11, we're going to be coming on here live to answer your questions. I will be going solo live on Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. Um, Shane will also be going live somewhere at one point in time. Thursdays, did you say maybe?
I got to figure out that day.
Okay.
But it'll be in an
So,
evening during the week, probably a Tuesday or Thursday, either here or possibly even on a YouTube. So
okay.
we'll see.
Yeah. So, you know, we're going to be a lot of opportunities to get in contact with us. Um, So yeah, you know, follow us if you're not following us. We post all the time. Kindred Dog PDX is my handle. Shane is Dog Trainer Shane. And yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of the Saturday. And thanks for
For the
watching.
weekend. It's going to be hot
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot. So
Take
get
care
your
of your
dogs
dogs.
out early. Don't make them walk on hot ass pavement because I will find you. So yeah, hope you all have a great day. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.